Thank you much for coming out to A Network Identity, Brave New World, or Business as Usual. I feel like there's probably a third option to this that we may get into here, something along the lines of, does it matter anymore at all? And I think that'll be sort of part of the fun. So, okay, let's bring out our three panelists. Up first, the EVP of Programming and Development from Freeform, Karey Burke. You may get your own chair. Wow. VP of Comedy Development for Marvel, Gish. And VP of Programming for HBO, Kathleen McCaffrey. I love that you're over here. You get an ottoman, you could just kick back and relax.
Hello again.
Yeah, right? It's Austin.
So first of all, I want to do a little test with the audience. About a month and a half ago, I went to my alma mater. A couple people were sort of interested in what a TV critic does. There were 10 undergrads. Not a single one owned a TV. And I assume that this is not going to be that kind of crowd. I assume most of you probably own TVs, but I guess I'm wondering how many of you out there consider yourselves cord cutters to some degree, however you want to define it. Okay, so that...
You too?
A little bit. You have to see. I mean, right? You just have to. Go on.
No, and I think that speaks a lot to what the conversation is here. So I want to first start off, each of you, for your network or your studio in Grant's case, in one sentence, how would you define the brand of your network?
Holy shit.
I'm gonna get eaten alive by the rest of the company. Yeah.
You can take two, but no more than two, because we're talking the pitch. You know, what is the how would you define in the shortest way possible?
Quality, not quantity.
There we go.
That's tough. I think Marvel has a lot to say about it. You know, I think there probably is some official Marvel motto that I just don't know.
Taught yet.
That I haven't been taught yet. You know,
Well,
10
I could have
months
gone,
in.
it's not TV.
Yeah.
I thought
I'll
that's where
take
you were
that
going.
one. Can I take that?
Yeah.
I think.
Not TV, it's Marvel.
Yeah. That's it. It's not TV. It's Marvel. Write it down. We'll put it out there. That's ours now. No, I think it's just something that I think we like to think about all shows is just surprising. You've got to do something surprising, and that's not unique to Marvel. I think it's something you want in all TV shows, but it's certainly something you expect when you see the Marvel brand on something.
Okay, well, I hesitated because we have an internal model that I have framed in my office that is normally not for publication. But we say at Freeform we like to make cool shit for baller women.
Yeah.
That's what we strive to do.
Great. That should be the motto.
Right.
That's awesome.
What we say outwardly facing is we also believe we are the young adult brand for the Walt Disney Company. You're welcome.
I really
Same
feel like
thing.
the first one was probably better, all things considered.
I love that. I want to make cool shit for baller women. Let's all do that.
Well, you mentioned it's not TV, it's HBO, and that was a very successful slogan for you guys for a very long time. To what degree today is it kind of the opposite? To what degree are you trying to convince people that HBO is TV, that HBO is, you know, that's where you get HBO, that's where you find HBO?
Well, I think we're week to week. We're Sunday night still. We're holding on to that. You know, we want people, and to a large degree, many people do associate Sunday nights with HBO, which is a wonderful thing. Obviously, now we've made it easy to catch up, and you know, you can HBO Go and HBO Now, which I understand is somewhat confusing, but you have both options. But we are still holding on to, like, sit down in front of your television on a Sunday night and know that we're going to give you something awesome and something that you will, you know, fall in love with, be attracted to, want to come back and continue to pay month to month for us, which is the big boss, Richard Klepper, always says, you have to win the vote every week. We have to win the vote every week. And so that's kind of what we're like, yes, we need you there on Sunday night. We need to give you something that you are paying for. You feel like it's part of your budget to come on Sunday night and pay for us. So we are holding on to that. We want people to sit in front of their TVs. We'll give it to you in other ways, but you sit in front of your TV Sunday night.
And to what degree have you guys, do you think, been impacted by the number of other networks that see Sunday night because of how you guys branded it as being the home where anything quality programming-wise goes? So now everybody's got their own big Sunday night drama, and does that make HBO stuff less special, I guess, or less
I
unique?
hope not. I hope not. I mean, certainly the bar is raised, but I do think a rising tide, raises all boats. And so the competition and all the new networks and all the great television is exciting. It's my job is much harder now. I've been there 9 years. I started at a time where Netflix didn't exist, and so now that there are all these great networks, our bar just keeps going higher, and it makes us work harder. We work harder. We are up for the challenge, I would say.
I desperately will want to talk trash about Netflix at some point.
I don't
Not-
even. I think they're. By the way, they're mixing shit up. So it's all right. Here we go. It's fine.
Yeah.
From your perspectives, what is the audience or the demographic for whom HBO as an actual name matters, or Freeform as an actual name matters, rather than the individual programs that they watch on whatever service they happen to be watching it at any point?
Go ahead. I've been talking to you.
Well, we've been thinking a lot about this because we just went through a rebrand. And one of the reasons we did it was, the name ABC Family didn't really reflect the programs that we're on. Our average viewer is a 26-year-old millennial woman. It's not family sitting down in front of the television. And one of my favorite studies that we saw before we changed the brand was a psychographic where television networks, brands, were correlated to types of human beings. So MTV was like a cool college kid, and CW was like an upwardly mobile sort of tech employee, and ABC Family was a Midwestern housewife. And that's when we knew we had to change the name. And I do think brand is important, but I think about it like, because we serve young adults at this channel, and I think in the way that apps curate attention, in social media or news, you go to HuffPo because you are going to get a certain kind of story. Hopefully you go to Freeform because you're going to get a certain kind of show, and even if you don't know what's exactly on. And I still think there's validity to that. Same with HBO. There's sort of, you're going to get something of quality on that Sunday night. There's not really a through line to what those shows are, but the through line really is quality.
Well, I'm sort of wondering, Grant, from your point of view, how conscious are you guys of what a correct home or an incorrect home for an individual piece of Marvel programming is?
Very. I think it's part of the fun of actually packaging something up and taking it out is, where is the right home for it? And, who's going to treat it right? And how are you going to get the most eyeballs on this show? I think that's part of the whole puzzle. Right now, there are a lot of buyers, which is great. Freeform has been a great partner with Marvel. They're doing
You're
a
welcome.
couple shows. Exactly. But we'd like to put stuff everywhere. But you're right. Not all of our shows are going to match, every outlet. Amazon certainly has a certain type of comedy they're trying to hit there. Freeform has been great because that audience we haven't tapped into really in the Marvel world. And these first two shows we're doing for them really will hit that demographic, a little bit younger than what we're used to doing with our Netflix shows, which are dark, very adult. This will tap into an audience that we really haven't had a shot at yet on TV. So it definitely weighs into the factor when we're taking stuff out. But there's certainly, I think, I like the idea of taking something to like 5 places and seeing what works. But you do think, oh, in the end, maybe it's better here. You want to see who's interested, and then you start weighing it all out.
Well, is there any concern, though, when there's such a large difference in viewers' minds between what an ABC Marvel show is, a Netflix Marvel show is, now what a Freeform Marvel show is? Is there a worry not so much about diluting the brand, but maybe confusing audiences regarding what it means?
I think so. And, we do have sort of 4 quadrants of shows that we sort of look at. We have our, dark adult stuff on Netflix. We have our younger stuff that we're going to be doing. And I say younger, but millennial age for Freeform, and also we have a show called Runaways coming out on Hulu, and then we have our ABC quadrant, which is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and we're doing Inhumans for them that will be coming out shortly, and then the 4th one is our animated division. We're doing a lot of animated stuff for kids, and then also adult animation that's coming up. So that's sort of where we are now. It doesn't mean there won't be a 5th quadrant someday, but we sort of see, all right, of our properties, they're probably going to fit into one of those spaces. And then the second, you're like, all right, this property is definitely dark, it's edgy, it's going to be one of those sort of digital or pay cable, your FXs, your Netflix, your Amazon, one of those places. So that does help, because we have such deep IP that we know a lot going into it where it's going to fit. And we know if it's, the Runaways was obviously going to be younger. It's sort of a teen, drama. That made more sense for a place, where you can get away with that.
Is there any thought on, from your point of view, or the company's point of view rather, of skipping the middleman and just getting a Marvel television network, given the sheer amount of programming you guys have?
It would be great. I don't think we're there yet, but I think it.
Don't rush.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. We love the idea of sharing the wealth. I think that's a little. I mean, that would be a long ways down the road once you have a lot of episodes to sort of just self-syndicate, and air nonstop. It'd be fun. I'd be all for it.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Watch it.
Now, Karey, I want to talk a little bit more about the transition from ABC Family to Freeform, which remains somewhat fascinating to me because
Me too.
because you had brand-wise one of the biggest brands in the entire world and a descriptor that was pretty clear, not necessarily regarding what you were still doing, but it still said what it was. Talk about the process of trying to redefine what family meant and then realizing that just wasn't going to be enough.
Well, when I got there, the decision had already been made to rebrand. I've been there about 2.5 years. And honestly, as much of a fan as I was of ABC Family, I have 5 children in my house, all between the ages of 13 and 22, and we were really watching ABC Family programming together, and I admired a lot of what was happening there. But the promise of a brand evolution, not revolution, to me was really compelling, because I did feel like there was more opportunity to do slightly more sophisticated, slightly more challenging, slightly edgier programming that was still aimed at young adults. But I did feel, Pretty Little Liars was our biggest show, and there was really not much that's family about Pretty Little Liars, right? I mean, starts with high school students murdering each other. To me, it was exciting to get on board that, and I had a front row seat to the process, which was really fascinating. We hired a naming company. It was recommended to us by the Walt Disney Company. This fascinating company, they named the Swiffer and the BlackBerry and the Pentium processor. Wow. And we gave them the attributes that we were going for. We gave them, we wanted something that suggested multi-platform, really, something that wasn't just, programming that lived inside a box, something that would be, the idea of something being freeform is fluid and can be, seen on multiple screens. And also speaking to, and this is perhaps too lofty and metaphorical, but young adults are freely forming, like they're in process, they're emerging into their identities and who they're going to be. And so when I first heard freeform, I scratched my head and went like, that sounds like a bra or a maxi pad or something. Sorry. But I believe it is in London. In the UK, it's like a line of sanitary situations. But it actually grew on me. And then we did a bunch of testing with our audience, and it was fascinating because we have a really social network, and we sort of tried the name out with a lot of our fans on social, and they were like, we love it, bring it. There was not what are you doing to our place, and why are you tearing this monolith down that we love? They kind of went, all right, that's cool, and kept watching. Right. So far, so good.
Okay, so first of all, now you need to tell us a couple of the other names.
Oh, I will. Okay, so my other favorite was, one of the things that Bob Iger had suggested to us was to try to find a name that came from the Disney pantheon, that somehow, without saying Disney, and he actually suggested to us at the time, he said, whatever you do, don't call it Disney's Freeform. And he shared with us that decision had been, this was before the first Star Wars movie came out, and there had been a conversation about should it be called Disney's Star Wars. Whoa. Can you imagine? And there was a decision made, no, absolutely don't do that, Thank God. Yeah. And he used that, he said, please, don't feel compelled to associate yourself with Disney. If you really want to stand for pure young adult entertainment, just have it be the subtext, not the text. So anyway, to that end, I like the name Alice. Of all the sort of Disney suggested names, because it's cool, and there's a great radio station in San Francisco that's Alice FM, and it's sort of, she went through the looking glass and came out the other side and had this great adventure. So that was one of them. I think Ink was another one.
INC or INK?
INK, because the sort of Walt Disney first drew Mickey Mouse with a drop of ink, and ink is the sort of molecule of creativity for writers. And then we found out that it means something vulgar in, I think, Arabic. So we abandoned that. And freeform won the day.
What's the line where between a female hygiene situation in the UK and something obscene in Arabic where one is one that you cross off and the other one is still okay?
It was not my department.
Yeah. I like Iger's suggestion. We could have had Disney's, Marvel's, New Warriors on Disney's Freeform.
Hard to fit
But
that into a
every
TV
time I
guide.
review one of your shows, it's Netflix's, Marvel's. When do you decide that you guys need to have the Marvel's possessionary credit?
We have a great publicity team somewhere who does that. You know, they get into it. I see it, and it's, you know, it is always there. You know, the brand thing. I think, you know, it certainly comes early in the process. There's an understanding that that's going to be somewhere in the name.
And I want to keep harping on Freeform a little bit more here,
Go ahead.
because it's fun. Do you find that young viewers are more easily able to adapt to something like that, and that you hear from sort of the older, grumpier viewers like me that it's really, really confusing, and that it's not the ABC Family that we didn't exactly grow up on, but you know, watched a certain period of. Do old people get grumpier about it?
100%. There was this invisible line of demarcation when I would have a conversation with somebody. If they were over 35, they went, well, that's a terrible idea. That's a really stupid name. And then under 35, people just went, okay, cool. Like, are you going to have the same shows on? I said yes. They went, all right, I'm watching. It was bizarre. It happened over and over again. And in fact, I'll tell an anecdote. There was a pilot that we produced around that time. It was January of last year. And it was a family comedy from the point of view of a young girl coming of age in Queens. And when we tested it, I believe this was February, so Freeform had been 2 months old. The testing audience said, that show really feels like ABC Family. It doesn't feel like Freeform. And we said, we don't even know what Freeform is yet. How do you think that you know? But there was this this sort of subtle understanding of what it was, and they just bought into it.
So, Grant, why do Cloak and Dagger and New Warriors feel Freeform, but they maybe wouldn't have felt ABC Family?
I was going to ask that question. I think with Marvel and your decision, you know, buying those shows, the idea is, you know, because you're going to get your core Freeform audience, but it's also, you're going to grow it. I think that there's going to be different people who tune in, right? And that that seems like a no-brainer for a network sort of starting out with a new brand, which I think is a great opportunity for both of us. It just made sense. Here's somebody who's starting something new. Let's get in on the ground floor and help them get a new identity, basically, without losing the old one.
And in truth, Cloak and Dagger had been in development at ABC Family before I got there, and it was a script sort of sitting dormant on a shelf. And I came in really wanting to do something with Marvel, not just for the sake of being in business with Marvel, but because I have a house full of teenagers that were reading it and watching it, and so wanting to find a property that felt right for us, that felt more appealing to young people. And so I called Jeff Loeb, Grant's boss, and introduced myself. And I said, I'm here now at ABC Family, and I'd like to, you know, talk to you again about this Cloak and Dagger show. And he literally was like, ha, 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 click. Like, I mean, no, like, sure, call me back when you spend more money on your shows, click. And I will be honest, that is part of the evolution is we did endeavor to expand our budgets and to raise the production quality and to really put more money on the screen. And for Marvel, that was the thing I think that convinced them that we weren't going to take their show and go shoot it in Santa Clarita in 5 days and have it sort of look like everything else. So we made a pledge to really put the quality on the screen and really spend more money than we had on anything before. And then the rest has been really a joy. Joe Pekaski, who, I don't know if Eric Greenberg is here, but had been an old friend of mine from Heroes days, had written the original script. He'd then gone on to create Underground and got the call, would he want to come back and rewrite this thing? And he was so funny. He called and he said, that was bad. I'm gonna do a whole new, I'm a better writer now. Let me rework this thing. And he did, and he wrote an amazing script. And the pilot's so good. I hope you get the chance to see it. I'm so proud of it.
Well, what percentage of the things that are still in your pipeline are kind of still leftovers that were at least started in the ABC Family days? or is this maybe going to be one of the last ones from that era?
That would be the last. Yeah, I think we've launched some shows that are doing well for us that were in development, a show called Stitchers. That may be actually the only one. Everything else I think is new. And Cloak and Dagger was really the only one. From now on, it'll all be. Well, actually, starting at Beyond was new development. Shadowhunters was new development. The Bold Type, which premiering next month, new development. So mostly new now.
Now, Kathleen, today is, of course, the 10th anniversary of The Sopranos finale, and that was a pretty
believe
big.
it went to black. Still can't get over it.
So I guess I have to ask you: did Tony Soprano die at the end of The Sopranos?
I don't know. I wasn't
She's
there
lying.
then.
They
I
all
wasn't-
know at HBO.
I wasn't there then, and then when I got to HBO, Chase had gone off to France, and so I guess we'll never know. No, he has something new, but he'll be back. But
I didn't expect you to actually tell me, but
I
no.
actually don't know.
What
I
I-
would love to know. I was a fan. I was like, what happened to my TV?
But I remember so vividly when that show was going off the air, how is HBO going to replace that show, but also, more importantly, how is HBO going to continue to be HBO without that show? And it took 3 or 4 years, really, before it settled into a new identity, and that had, I would say, a fair amount to do with Game of Thrones, and now that's coming to an end. I'm sort of curious about how you see the shift of identity from the HBO that was The Sopranos' HBO to now Game of Thrones' HBO.
I know, it's a great question. I mean, it's our challenge every morning when we wake up. It's like, and I think I said this yesterday, so sorry for being redundant, but when Game of Thrones, when I started, it was the time where it was like, well, now Sopranos is gone, Sex and the City is gone, like, what are you going to do? And Game of Thrones, they were like, what's the next Sopranos? And nobody could have guessed it would be Game of Thrones, right? So it's like, we didn't know that was going to be what it's become. So I guess our hope is, we're doing the spin-offs, as mentioned, but we're trying to stay in that genre. It's working really well for us, but also we don't know. We're just trying to develop really high quality material and hope. You always hope that something takes flight. You always, like I would also say that we didn't think Big Little Lies was going to be what it was, and Big Little Lies is, I think is the biggest show for women since Sex and the City, and that's a long time. And so now we're like, oh, women, yeah, let's do that. Let's, so maybe it's the women that are going to show up and make, and sort of, come into the brand. And so I think part of it is we try to program, we program for more niche audiences, but we're very true to our creators. We have a new show from David Simon, we have a new show from Alan Ball, and so we kind of stick with our peeps to stay on brand, and then you can also supplement that with Anissa Rae, or we're doing Room 104. I hope you come today to see it. It's super awesome. Something a little bit smaller, but for maybe younger people than the people going to watch the Alan Ball show. So we try to balance that way.
But when you know that you have the capacity to get an audience of the size that a Game of Thrones gets,
crazy.
or a female audience the size that, and I assume plenty of men probably watch Big Little Lies as well.
Yeah,
I'm guessing.
yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Great show.
Sorry, the women and Grant who watch
The
Pretty
women and
Little
Grant.
I'll take it.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
In good company. Yeah.
But how does that affect your decision-making process when you go, okay, yes, we want to remain in the David Simon business, but we also know that the David Simon business is a niche business. It's
Yeah.
going to do this
Right.
audience, but not.
Although I wonder about this new one, The Deuce, that's coming out, because this one, again, this will be the most commercial thing he does. It's got James Franco playing twins and Maggie Gyllenhaal. So in terms of, this is the first time, obviously David usually uses no-name cast or sort of high actors that don't have star power, and so maybe, who knows? Do you know what I mean? We're okay, maybe that'll find a big audience. Who knows? And Ballers, for example, huge audience for us. It's our biggest half hour. So you're like, okay, The Rock makes a difference, and so you kind of just go, people like him. Who knew? So you kind of, you can't predict, but you sort of you can find one or two things that you're like, what, I think. You always hope that it snowballs, I guess, is the thing. You start with something that you're confident in and that we really are excited about, and then you just hope that people agree. Even Young Pope, we were like, oh, I don't know if anyone's going to watch it, and then suddenly everyone was talking about it, and it was a really cool thing, and obviously it's not a huge juggernaut in terms of ratings, but we care less about that than we do about just the buzz around it, so that works for us, for example.
Do you have big Young Pope thoughts, Grant?
I
get the
love
ceiling-
that show.
the
Yeah.
I don't want to
ceiling
keep heaping
It's
praise on
funny.
you, Kat, but I love the Young Pope.
I'll take it. Keep it coming.
But how does a surprise impact you in development? If you know that if you've got in your gut that ... is going to be a success, you can go, okay, we can already start developing things around it. But when you suddenly find out after 8 episodes have aired that Big Little Lies is huge, how do you go, wait, it's going to take us another year and a half to get something to capitalize on that? How do we do that?
Well, you kind of, again, great question. We talk about it all the time. It's a live conversation with us. It's sort of like we didn't know, and we still don't know if Big Little Lies will come back for season 2. But it's a conversation. They're talking about it, and so that's new, and so we're hopeful. And it won't happen for a while, but we hope that same audience will come back again. And again, just the Sunday night thing. Everybody gets a turn in terms of our scheduling. Do you know what I mean? So I mean, everybody watches Game of Thrones, so all of y'all are watching that, I presume. But like otherwise, like we'll do something for you, and it kind of like goes that way, So when Big Little Lies comes around again, it'll be, hopefully that same audience will come back.
Grant, I want to talk a bit about the idea of comedy in a brand which is known to have comedy integrated in it, but not necessarily comedy. DC had its first live-action comedy on this year in Powerless, and there were very specific rules that were given to them at all times regarding the things within the universe that they could laugh at versus the things that were sacrosanct and not allowed. And I assume that obviously a lot of that has to do with the difference in corporate cultures and tone, but as you guys think about laughing at Marvel, how able are you to laugh at yourselves?
Very, I think. My boss, Jeff Loeb, who Karey mentioned, always tells writers when they come in and he's telling them about a show that we're looking for writers, he's pitching them on the idea, and then they'll come back and pitch us their take. He says that's always their first question. What can we do with these characters? What can we do with Marvel? He says, imagine you've got a 10-lane highway. Take all the lanes you need. But remember, there are guardrails. Like, you just don't drive off the cliff. Stay in the highway, but you can do whatever you want. So there's a lot of leeway there. There are folks within Marvel who know the brand really well, including Jeff, who's written comics and knows everyone on the publishing side. They'll be there to referee if they go out of bounds with a character. So we just let them run wild, and then if we have to pull them back for whatever reason, we will. There's safeguards against that. But we also understand, you need to have a little fun, particularly in comedy. I think as long as you stay true to the character, for example, Deadpool, you're going to get a lot of that comedy that's self-referential because it's part of the character. It'd be a little more unnatural maybe coming from Squirrel Girl making a joke about something in the Marvel world, because that's just not who she is. So I think as long as you stay true to the character, there's absolutely opportunity in there to have fun with it.
Well, I am kind of curious about what the guardrails, a little bit more about the guardrails.
It's specific. It's very specific. It changes based on the character and the IP and the comic. I don't have any real specifics because it comes up fairly good amount, but it's never like, don't do that. It's always like, how about not this? Come back in a little bit here. But it's usually very easy. It's just sort of part of the process. And I think every writer who we've worked with expects that. They know there is going to be a little bit of the Marvel element of sort of the Marvel overlords looking down and saying, this is our very important IP, handle with care, but have fun. And you got to make a good TV show, so you got to have a little bit of leeway.
Well, Karey, what has your experience been with that and with the guardrails?
I have to say, so far, so good. Nothing has been sacrosanct. Is that the right word? Nothing has been too precious to make fun of. And the premise of New Warriors and Squirrel Girl is they are emerging superheroes anyway. So their powers are nascent and bad for the most part. So they really lend themselves to making fun of themselves anyway as characters. And since they are outside of Squirrel Girl, who has, I think, a big place in the hearts of a lot of people in the MCU, but she's an inherently odd comedic character in the first place. So truly, I'm not going to call bullshit on Grant. So far, we've been having a ball. They've been going for it.
Well, I asked Grant sort of a variation on this in a panel yesterday. Why was the decision to make it the New Warriors and not Squirrel Girl and the New Warriors? Sort of not foregrounding Squirrel Girl, who has her very particular group of advocates.
Who are Freeform fans.
Yeah.
We didn't really make that decision. It was the script came to us written, and as conceived, it was really her at the center. She really is the first among equals in the show. She's really the point of view character for, and that's why it made sense for our audience. I think if one of the other, not that we don't have male leads, because we do, but I think we were really passionate about Squirrel Girl anyway and chasing her as a character. I think our head of development wore her Squirrel Girl hat in the pitch, which is perhaps how we won the day. So we love that she's the featured character, but she doesn't need to be in the title. I think the fans that know her are going to come knowing she's in the show.
Now, Grant, in any given week, how many times would you say that you hear Jeff Loeb say, #it's all connected? Because I've never been
I'm
to a
not going
panel.
on the record saying anything that Jeff said. You know, never. I think there's so much fun on the comedy side where, yes, we know there are specific rules that you have to follow. You know, because there's a lot of money made in the feature side. We don't own all of these properties. You know, a lot of them are Fox. So yes, it's all connected. You know, it's all the same universe. But it's rare that comes up. You know, oh, remember we're all in the same world, because it's just natural. I think all of the places that our shows exist are real. Cleveland, New York, San Francisco. We're at New Orleans. As opposed to DC, where they have, you know, Gotham and Metropolis, which I think may make it a little more confusing. With ours, it just it's easy. It goes down easy. There's not a lot of explaining that needs to be done.
But you still have the cinematic properties that exist, and so Daredevil exists as a cinematic property, and, well, not currently, but, you know, it could again.
Yeah.
And then there's the Netflix version, or Deadpool does exist as a cinematic character and now an FX character. How are those two kind of working in tandem, the two Deadpools?
It's a good question. I think, again, it goes to every piece of IP is different based on who owns it at the moment and what that deal was that was made 20, 30 years ago. I think in the case of Deadpool, it was just the deal that was made that we retained rights to probably animation. That we were allowed to do the animation for TV. It's as simple as that sometimes. I'm sure there's a lot of paperwork that goes into it, but usually there's cases of what the original deal was. I think with our other shows, we try not to dip into the world of, say, the Avengers. You know, you're not going to see an Ant-Man live-action drama anytime soon, just because he's there. You know, maybe 10 years down the line or whenever, you know, they may say, you know what, we did it, we had a run, give it a shot, because we don't want to. Everybody works really well together. You don't want to step on any toes. Everybody's got their own properties right now at the moment. I always like to think there's one person in the New York offices who has like a beautiful Mindesk board to keep track, because there's 11,000 characters and a lot of them cross over, and I don't know how they keep track, but if we have a question, we just send it up to the
Really,
legal team.
11,000?
It's something like that.
That's insane.
Don't Wikipedia it right now because it's probably wrong, but it's something like that. There are a lot.
Wow.
When it comes to network identity and sort of how people are watching things differently, in 2014, Kathleen, when the Amazon HBO licensing deal came out, it was a big deal. It was a huge deal. And now suddenly, 3 years later, it seems like a less big deal, and it's kind of being phased out to some degree. How do you think that reflects on sort of, I guess, things people could have anticipated in 2014 versus where we stand today? How people watch TV and how people...
I think it stresses me out to think about, truly, when I think about, you know, how people watch TV, because it makes me feel old also. I'm like, I'm old school, I want to sit and watch a television, and that is sort of, you know what I mean? I don't think for me, watching something on my iPhone would feel as fulfilling. It doesn't, but it probably makes, you know, means I'm old. But in terms of what we're doing now and sort of, you know, and I think this is probably saying too much. I probably shouldn't say it, but you know, we're working to figure out HBO Now and HBO Go together as sort of like we're going to have our own platform for something, and that was something we'd always hoped for, and we tried, you know, for a minute to do original programming for the streaming service like back in the day, and now we're, you know, look, as a development executive who can only program for a Sunday night slot, I personally, and this is not HBO thing, I personally hope that we can start to program direct to streaming, because that's what people are watching, and that is the way it's going. And now I feel like, though we're so proud of that Sunday night, you know, brand and the thing, we also have, I think, why not do more things and do, you know, try to bring that to another platform? And you know, it's changing rapidly, and I think we're looking at it. You know, we personally we HBO are looking at it and going like, okay, well, people are watching on these other ways, and so why don't we give them something to watch in this other way? So I'm hopeful that, me personally, just because we have good stuff that comes in, and sometimes it's a matter of real estate that you can't get a great show on the air because you have, you know, Westworld season 2, and you have stuff coming back, which is wonderful and it's working. But you know, sometimes there's stuff you just want to try, and like that'd be cool to have another way to do it. And I think people will show up because that's what's happening, right?
That was
crazy.
That was to some degree what the Jon Stewart thing was supposed to be, right? That it was supposed to at least have the potential.
Yeah.
What did you learn? I mean, even though obviously that did not go forward, what did you learn about what might or might not work in that space and what you need to do to actually get something there?
Well, I think for that specifically was animation, was the trip up. It was like the technicality of that and sort of being topical and on HBO and animating something. It's just a really, I don't know that much about animation, you know much more than I do, but it's a very long and complicated process, and it just wasn't, for us, it didn't make sense in terms of what we needed it to be. But something else, I mean, yeah, you live and learn, and I don't know that we try animation again in that regard. I don't know, even though we like desperately want to work because I'm in love with Jon Stewart. deeply, but we'll figure something else out with him. But that model of it was like, oh, we tried and we failed. Now we'll try something else.
Did you guys see clear evidence of the Amazon deal driving people to old HBO properties, and you realized, okay, we'd rather have these in-house and drive them to ourselves, or?
I think so. I think it's just sort of like, let's try to bring eyeballs to our shows, and in whatever way that makes sense for us. Yeah, I mean, yes, I think we're happy about people finding us wherever they find us.
Karey, do you guys at Freeform, I know you have a big digital presence, because I was scrolling through iTunes or whatever, my Apple TV, and I saw the Freeform icon. Do you guys do direct to?
That's awesome.
Online? Yeah, it was literally top 10, yeah. Do you guys do
Even more
direct
awesome.
to your website or anything like that, short form yet?
We do. We have short form that's on the website that we just did it as an experiment. We didn't monetize it. We just sort of did it as a
What is
development
it?
lab.
Sorry for not knowing.
A show called Party Girl that we did with Lisa Schwartz. Super funny. We did,
How
did
long are they?
3 to 5 minutes. We did one with Jason Alexander and his son called Dinner with Dad, which is the two of them sitting at Cantor's, literally. You feel like you're watching Seinfeld. And it's Jason giving his son acting advice. His son is trying to break into the television business, and we shot a bunch of episodes with them and just put them up on the platform just to get buzz and viewership and use it experimentally.
Well, how hard has the process been of relearning the matrices for success over the past few years, and sort of finding a way? As you say, you didn't monetize those, but did you get enough information to suggest that monetizing it is soon, or that we're still a long way from that?
No, we actually, Party Girl, we got enough information and excitement to develop it as a show for the linear channel. So we knew there was something there. We just got a lot of really good feedback and our fan engagement with the show, asking for more. So now we're doing it as a traditional single camera half hour and bringing it to the channel.
Now, going back to Netflix, God love them, in any given week, they're releasing 2 to 3 original shows, 5 or 6 acquisitions from foreign countries, 20 seasons of other network shows that they're just dropping. When you guys are in a business where you simply don't have enough money to do that, how do you look at a behemoth like that on the horizon just flooding the marketplace?
With disdain.
I wasn't going to say it.
We love Netflix. They're the greatest. We love them.
I just think we're just playing a different game. Right? It's like I can't do that, and so there's some stuff I watch on Netflix. Like I can't keep up. It stresses me out. But they're playing a different game, and so cool, whatever.
Yeah, it's been surprising as a buyer. I would say in the last year, I have felt more pressure. They're going after similar shows. 13 Reasons Why was a script that we had that we loved, that we were thinking about, and then we got the call saying, sorry, Netflix.
Wait, you developed it?
No, I was sent the script and I
you were sent
loved it, and but I'd had it like a day, and then the agents called and said, "Sorry, it's going to Netflix, full series." And I
You just can't play.
yeah, I just couldn't compete.
But you respect it. I mean, you take the full series offer if you get it. But
Right, when I had just come from being a producer, I would have taken it and
yeah,
run.
of course.
Well, but you can say they're playing a different game, but you guys are at least on a field that's next door. So when you get told that this script that you really liked, that there's no even point of negotiation from your point of view, what does that make you think in terms of the next script that lands on your desk that you have a visceral reaction to? Does it make you want to go after it immediately? Does it reduce your thinking time?
Yeah, it wasn't really like lag time on our part. I think in that case, given the subject matter of that show, and I think given the level of commitment, there was it just was an uneven playing field. And I think probably Netflix did a version of the show that we might not have been able to do. So it probably ended up being the right home for that content. And we have won things away from Netflix and Hulu because they're not the greatest deals for writers in many cases. There's money up front, there's a big payday up front, but there's not the back end and sort of long-term potential financial upside from a business model standpoint. So we have, in some cases, really been passionate about something and made our case and won the day.
Well, from your perspective, how does that work? You know, when would you rather go to Netflix? When would you rather go somewhere else?
Well, I think it is, they've been a great partner, as you guys know, to Marvel. I think we have 6 shows there, and they've been fantastic. But I do think they can't buy everything. They won't buy everything. And as Karey said, not every writer really wants to go there for a number of reasons. And I also think it goes to your earlier question of, how much do we factor in, the identity of a network before we take it out. And a lot, we don't want every one of our Marvel shows in one place. We don't want to just be, oh, it's a Marvel show, it's on Netflix. They're great, we'll continue to take them stuff. But we'd also like to share the wealth a little bit. And what does a Marvel Amazon show look like? What is it? We're going to find out what a Marvel Freeform show looks like. What does a Marvel FX show look like? We're going to figure that out. TBS, HBO. There's a lot of places that we've yet to see that I think we certainly don't want to cut those opportunities off before exploring them.
Well, do you guys think that Netflix has an identity, or is volume an identity? I mean, volume could be an identity, I guess. We're the place that has the 30 shows premiering next week. So
yeah. It's something for everybody. Yeah, I think that is their identity.
And
You can
also
find anything.
a vast library. I mean, there are many, many freeform shows that do extremely well on Netflix. So it's not, I think they're known for just more than their original shows. Our audience is watching our shows on Netflix. I'd prefer there was attribution. I would prefer they knew they were freeform shows on Netflix, but I'm waiting for that day to come.
well, do you see a shift in which that's going to be likely, or do you think you're going to have to find different leverage to make that happen? And what is the leverage?
I am not at liberty to say.
Okay, but we want to make sure that if there are questions from the crowd, because there are many, many angles to this topic, and so if people have things that they would... right there.
Yeah, I have a question for Kathleen. I'm dying waiting for July for the new Game of Thrones episodes to come out, as well as season 2 of Westworld. And I was curious, watching all the other seasons of Game of Thrones come out like clockwork around like April, May area, is that a hard conversation to have when the showrunners come and say, hey, we need more time to do this right? Or is it, do you guys prioritize the quality no matter the schedule?
That's right. So, I mean, yes, it's a hard conversation because we have a schedule in mind and we like some things to be annual. But it's game. They work so hard. It's a full-time job. They're in Belfast forever and ever. Their family. I mean, it's just. It's not like they're slacking off. When they say they need time, we're like, yeah, okay, you can. I mean, of course, you can have it, like for sure. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like take the time you need to get it right, and it's it's important to us. But the show is important to us in terms of scheduling, but more important, the sort of ability for our creators to create and be telling the story they want to tell. That is paramount.
And is there a part in the back of people's minds where there's almost a kind of relief? Because if they had come out with a last season of 13 episodes that premiered in April, that would be done. And now you have an extra year and a half to think of the next thing.
That's right.
So
buy time. No, yeah, and again, it's like we do this sort of on every show, Game of Thrones, or from the biggest show to the smallest. It's like whatever they need, we see ourselves as ultimately our job is to support the people we bring in house, and so whatever it is they need, and in this case, it does weirdly work out. It's okay, like we can take our time to end the series in the right way.
other question, one way in the back there. Yeah, you.
So when it comes to looking at shows like on your phone or using it as a second screen, what do you all personally feel about that? And then how does your company approach that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll start. I mean, we're at Freeform. We're very aggressive about being multi-platform. We have our viewers are 26. Literally, I took a poll of all the assistants in the office a couple months ago. It's a cable channel. One of them had cable. So we are highly aware of how our audience consumes content, and they want choice about where they're getting it. So whether it's on our app, whether it's on Hulu, whether it's on a set-top box, if they do have cable, we want to be able to, we would like to be in as many places as possible to get shows out to them. So we really are pushing very, very hard into digital viewing in digital spaces. The last 2 big shows that we launched this year, in fact, Beyond in January and Famous in Love in April, we experimented, and we put up all the episodes at the same time on our linear channel and on our app and on Hulu and on demand. And it was incredibly cool what we saw. The linear ratings suffered, which we knew were going to happen, but But we got more people viewing the content because we made it available in more spaces than we ever would have if we had just been, just kept it only on the channel.
Great,
So
Kathleen.
that's our
Yeah, I think it's just
point of view.
it's unavoidable. I mean, you have to accept it. I think we're a seller, so we'll sell anywhere. We don't care where you watch it if you're watching it. Honestly, I think it is. I watch my nieces watch stuff. They will literally watch a show on an iPad while sitting in front of a TV, and they won't watch what's on the TV. So I think it's just a sign of the times. That's why everyone's starting their own. CBS has their own. They're all access. Everybody. HBO is doing it. It'll be, to me, it's fascinating. I'm excited to see where it leads and where we end up in even 5-10 years.
But when you're putting the amount of money that you're putting into these shows, into them, how much are you assuming or hoping the production values will keep people watching it on the largest screens possible? Game of Thrones does not look as good on your phone. The Netflix Marvel shows, some of those are dark. Like, if you've ever tried watching Daredevil on your phone, it's hard. So is that a strategy that you guys have where you put money in the hopes that it will keep people bigger screens?
I mean, we still prioritize the linear, so we put money in hoping that people will watch it in a cinematic way, but also we're not so naive as to think that people aren't watching it on their phones, And by the way, again, we would if you use your phone to catch up, like we'll watch us anywhere, of course, but yes, we still obviously in terms of budget prioritize sitting in front of the TV.
I think I saw a couple over there.
Over the last, say, 10 years, there's been an increased growth in DVR and watching, not linear, not Sunday night, or watching Monday morning. And then last year, CW stepped away from Hulu and established their own app. I watched stuff on Freeform's app. It seems like there was a lag or some resistance to expanding the network's brand into those avenues. What was the tipping point, or what got noticed that changed that conversation finally? Because it seems like it's shifting now where for a while watching stuff on DVR wasn't really counting towards the ratings and you watched things get canceled that you loved because you weren't really counting. What finally changed, or what is changing that?
I'll speak for Freeform. I think there is a slow and too slow, glacial awareness that live plus 35 really that the tail, which is the tail on a show is critically important, and I think it's just taken the industry a long time to catch up with that. We all were slaves to Nielsen overnights for many, many years, and in our company, we just did the really hard work of not reporting them because we kept reporting them and saying, but we're not going to look at them, which is impossible to do. So we just had to cut ourselves off, and still some of our bosses are kicking and screaming, saying, I need to know what the overnights are. But increasingly, people are watching not live plus same day, and linear is critically important, and understanding how people watch linearly and the DVRs are here to stay, and it's just as important a way to view a show if it's not live same day, and that finally is taking hold that it matters.
Now we have premium cable, studio cable here. How do you guys look at how the broadcast networks are coping with this? Does it feel as if they're keeping identities, or that they've realized that the only way to have an identity is to kind of be for everyone to the best degree that they can? How are they handling this question that you guys are handling, do you think?
It's a good question. It's hard to speak for them, but I can say that they certainly all would like to think, oh no, we'll take anything, we'll buy anything. Yes, we have our certain audience, but there's your broadcast. You want to grow it at all times, but they can't really help it. If you look at ABC, their comedy brand is big family shows, and they do really well. So they're not going to fight that. They might be developing different styles of comedy every year in hopes that they get one that hits, so they can expand it. But they're certainly going to not ignore what is working for them. So it's hard to say, but I think what took the networks, the broadcast networks, so long to get rid of that next day ratings. A lot of it's just it took the advertisers a long time too to say, we're still going to pay you for those +7 numbers, and that's what took so long. They still dictate a lot. Fortunately, you don't have to worry about that because you're not TV. But it still was a huge factor into them, making those decisions that we're going to only care now about +3, +7.
Well, Karey, you guys just acquired the Blackish spinoff, and which was developed at Network. How did that come to you guys, and why did that not feel like an ABC show to them?
I think because ultimately, at its heart, it needs to be a young adult ensemble, and really during the development of it, our friends over there at ABC Studios and even at ABC were saying, "Hey, if this doesn't work out here, if there's not room on the schedule, you should really take a look at it." And so we were sort of already standing there and with, open arms, waiting for it, because Kenya himself, as he was developing it, said, "This really feels like a freeform show. If ABC doesn't pick it up, can I have a meeting with them?" And so we met with Kenya sort of during scheduling week and watched it, and it felt very much to us like a freeform show. We're going to make some adjustments, actually. He's adding 2 series regulars that are also college students, so the focus will be more on that, the college generation, and less so on the adults at the university, although Parnell and Matt Walsh will still be in it.
Well, but you've worked in Network before, and, as you say, you call them your friends, but they're also your siblings, et cetera, corporate siblings. From your point of view, even as a beneficiary, does it feel like a miss to you that that's sort of not part of the business that they felt like they could be in, that they thought it was more of a cable show?
No, I actually see it as a win, because I do think we have really distinctly different audiences. The average ABC viewer is quite a bit older than the average freeform viewer. And their audience is fantastic, and I love their comedies, but to me, it was actually a great example of synergy, and something that we've worked hard internally to get better at. When I got to ABC Family, Freeform, then ABC Family, ABC Studios and ABC Family had not made a show together in 10 years, since Kyle XY, which I had just been a producer at ABC Studios. It made no sense to me. I know, such a good show. So we worked really hard to actually, we sometimes hear a pitch and say, "This feels a little bit more, family," and we call our friend at ABC and say, "You guys should hear this pitch," and vice versa. If something feels a little too young for them, they send it our way.
Other questions? Let's go there. And then.
I have a question for Grant. So with your relationship with Netflix, because Netflix doesn't release basically ratings or how many people are watching a show, what other metrics do you use when a season is, a new season is being renegotiated, or you're looking to bring a new show to the table?
It's a really good question. I'm not hyper involved in any of the drama stuff that goes on. I certainly hear it and I see it. I think it is. I think anybody who has a show at Netflix, it's frustrating to a degree because you never know how your show's performing. But you figure it out. If they keep ordering more seasons, something must be working. But also use the press. I think it was odd when Iron Fist premiered. There was a headline I think in Variety that said Netflix's most watched premiere, and I don't know how they get those numbers, but there is some algorithm that someone has put together that can measure Netflix bandwidth traffic and see how many people are watching at a certain time. And if it's that premiere weekend, they can say, "Oh, more people were watching Netflix this weekend than ever. Must be because of this new show." It's something like that. It's more, I'm sure, much more complicated than that. But we'll take any of that where we get it. But I think ultimately is creatively you focus on, do we like this show? Are we happy with it? And then if they keep asking for more, then you feel like you've done your job.
Orange shirt.
I had a question for Karey. Given the transition from ABC Family to Freeform, is the Greek TV movie dead?
That's a good question.
Great question. No, it's not dead. It is alive. We were trying to make it work with that. That cast has gone on to do a lot of things, and they're all really busy. And so trying to patchwork together everyone's availability has proven more difficult than we thought. But we have a great script from Sean Smith, and we're hopeful.
So as a writer, like the first question, friends will always ask me is like, "Oh, what network do you think your show would be good for?" And I always feel like I don't know if I'm saying the right thing, like if I really understand the brand that the network wants to be. Do you guys feel like there's, like right now, I know it's like a moving target, but as a snapshot, like what's like the dream content that you wish somebody would like send you right now? And then we'll all write it and send it to you.
Friends. I'd take that again.
It's tough for Marvel. All of our stuff is based on IP, so it's something that's already out there. and which is it's nice to be in the position where you can just sort of go through the goodie bag and see what makes sense for you at any given moment. But I would also say then rather than focus on what is someone as an audience or as a writer, I think just go write whatever you want, and then worry about where it belongs. At this point, especially, if you write it, you'll be more inclined to sort of find your voice of these are the stories you want to tell, and then you figure out once you're written, hey, maybe this is a great freeform show, or this is whatever. But I think just do it because I think that's what's fun. At least I would imagine as a buyer is just getting something that maybe you never thought about. You're like, that is cool. Never thought of that idea. Really well executed, and then you go with it.
Yes, I mean, by and large, the biggest hits in TV have come from someone's original idea, something burning inside them that they had to get out, and not, networks saying, these are the kinds of things we're looking for, So, write your passion.
What would your answer to the question be?
That would be my answer. And I think, HBO speaks to that. I think, yes, write what you want to write, and then it's your story to tell anyway. If it goes to series, it's going to be somehow connected to you. And so I could say, we really want a hospital show, and then I can get 50 hospital shows. But, if it's not personal to you, then it's not going to be that good,
Well, how do you feel like HBO balances we have our people who are in the family, the Simons, Milches, et cetera, but then also making sure that you can find the next Issa Rae, that you can find the next Lena Dunham?
Well, my boss Casey was there. He when I developed Girls, so when Lena came in, we just listened to the people who are passionate about something, and Lena came in and she had such a clear point of view and such a strong voice, and we just knew she had something to say, and so we had our sort of bigger series. There was room to take a chance on somebody with that voice, and so the good news is the culture at HBO is we have certain things we have to do in terms of the schedule. We need a big drama here, a big drama there, whatever. But we also are really open to good ideas coming from anywhere, truly, and that's an exciting thing to.
But how essential is having a Judd Apatow involved or a Larry Wilmore involved? Just as a background.
It is. No,
to the
it
voice.
is. You need. That's we were. Yesterday our panel was about packaging, and we talk about. Yes, it's so nice to have Nicole Kidman and Reese Witherspoon. That's dope. You go forward with that show. But most importantly, you need someone. Casey always says, you need who's the showrunner. It's the first question always. He will. I can read a young writer a crazy script. Will be I'm just really passionate about this voice, and he'll go, great, awesome. Who's the showrunner? That is the most important piece. For sure. So somebody who can come in and actually make it work for 10 episodes, multiple seasons, to really shepherd the voice, or find, the Jenny Connor, Judd Apatow way of supporting Lena. They let her do her thing, but knew how to make TV, so that is the dream, in terms of the package.
Let's see, do we have another question from out in the crowd? Then as a last question, there we are.
Follow up on that. So that is you would look at that and find the show. That's what I understand the American sort of story was. I was talking about Nicole Clemens, that they actually put those two together.
Well, in that case, we did it. I don't think there's a wrong way to do that. Yeah, it's either if I find, somebody who I'm passionate about who doesn't have enough experience to run their own show, then I'll often, there's certain levels of writers that we're just tracking, and we'll just call the agencies and be who's available and try to make a marriage work. Sometimes it comes in already done. Sometimes we do it. I think, there's sort of no wrong way.
And just to the last question, leaving out your respective networks, who is a network that you feel has a vivid brand identity right now where you go, I like the things this network does. I know what this network shows are going to sort of feel like in general. Who's doing this right?
I like FX.
Yeah, there's a lot of answers to that. I watch a lot of HBO and I watch a lot of FX for both comedy and drama stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think TBS. And I'm having fun watching their
Great comedies.
comedies and Sam B.
Well, thank you guys so very much for chatting about this very, very broad topic today.
It was fun.
And thank you all for coming out.